All right, good to see everybody here. I'm getting situated. If I stand here, can you see the projection? Okay. All right. So, welcome. I had the honor of doing Chinese service in the morning with Jackie translating, so I'm like just adjusting a little bit that no one's translating after I speak. So, if there's any like awkward pauses, it's because I'm trying to see if anyone was there for stuff. Okay. Anyway, so as you can see for today, I've entitled it "Running to Win," and I think it's cool that it just so happened to align with the Olympics. And so, how many of you have watched any of the Olympics during the last couple weeks or followed the news? So, yeah, I've been watching and following some of the clippings every now and then. And so, it just so happened that our Bible reading plan this week was on 1 Corinthians 9. And so, if you would read this together with me, just a couple verses we can read together. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. All right, let's pray. God, we just come to you. We thank you, Lord, for who you are, God, and we just give you this time, Lord, that you would speak to us in our midst and work in our midst, God, and I ask that our minds, our hearts would be open to you, God, and receptive to you, Lord. Would you just have your way? I pray that you would help me yield to you, God, that I have confidence in you, Lord, and I pray that my brothers and sisters would just be open to you as well. I pray this in Jesus' name. All right, so I would guess that many of you, if you've been walking with the Lord for a while, have read these passages, but I feel like this passage definitely gives us some wisdom in what it means to run to win, or what this whole race is about. And so just to give you some background on this passage, Paul wrote it in the context of the Isthmian Games. I hope I'm saying that right. But it's like the ancient version of our Olympic Games. And so Isthmia, can you go back one? Is a little city outside of Corinth, about 10 miles or so outside of that big city. And so you can see it's like right in between the two bodies of water there. Yes, thank you for the pointer. And so it was held every 2 years, so that all of Greece basically would come together to either participate or to watch in this sport. And it would pretty much be drawing the empire's best to this sporting event that everybody would be going for. So like, imagine, Olympics or like Super Bowl or rugby or cricket for y'all or whatever big thing it is in your country. People would just be flocking to see this sporting event. And so these games were to honor the Greek god Poseidon. And this is the real temple that's there today. And she's the god of the sea. And so this temple, basically, it was like the most prominent building that was in Isthmia. And right by it, there's this place where all the athletes would go and they would take an oath there to play according to the rules. And, if they broke the oath, then they would be disqualified. So that's within that structure. Also there, in the next slides, you'll see that there's two different structures. And the one on the left is a stadium, basically, where people would, the athletes would compete in chariot racing, or what's the other thing that they do there? I can't remember. But the running, or things that require a long strip of land. So that was there, and they would do foot races, they would box, they would wrestle. They had long jump, javelin, discus, which you can talk to Lita about because she did that way back when. Don't be surprised, it's true. She shared it a couple weeks ago. And surprisingly, they also had poetry reading and singing, which is very different from what we know as the Olympic Games today. And according to some of the inscriptions that that were going around Paul's time too, it said that even women were involved and they even competed and won things like the 200-meter dash and the chariot races. So I thought that was pretty cool. One other thing I think is cool about the context of it is that we know that Paul's writing this, right? And so Paul was a tent maker. So in this time, there weren't any places that you can permanently live in. Like there wasn't housing or accommodations, and so it was a perfect place for Paul and his friends, Priscilla and Aquila, to find employment. And as they were pitching tents, they were also able to share the gospel with the people that were attending the games. So just to give you some background on that, and I want to just offer a few points that I think this passage gives us as far as running. So the first one is to proceed, to get going. And you can kind of see in the middle there is Usain Bolt from Jamaica, and they're in the starting blocks, right? And if you've ever seen him run, this guy is like wicked fast. Like he just like pummels through and beats everybody all the time. So Paul begins the passage by saying, "Do you not know, right, that in a race all run, but only one receives the prize?" And he asked this question that I kind of thought about. He's like, "Do you not know?" And it reminded me of like a parent who kind of says like, "Don't you know?" Like da 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 da, or a teacher's like, "Don't you know that you need to be like doing your work right now," or something. So Paul is asking this question, pretty confident that the people that he's talking to already know the answer. You know, it's like, "Don't you know that in a race all run, but one receives a prize?" And so this passage is no exception. He's confident that they know the answer already, and that in this race only one winner. There's only one winner. But unlike the Olympic Games, where there's, gold, silver, bronze for second and third place, here they're just competing for one prize. So there's no second place. They're competing for this crown. Not this crown, but a crown, a wreath, basically. And do you know what this thing is made out of? Back in the day? You'll never guess, so maybe you know. Celery. It's like celery. It's a wreath of celery that they're like fighting to the death for, which doesn't really make sense to me. But that was like what it was all about. Like if they won the game, like they wouldn't have to pay taxes for a year. They would be excused from military. They would have their tuition paid if they went to school. They would have statues of themselves erected all along the road. But they really just wanted the wreath. They were all about this crown. And so that was really the real prize awarded to the winner. And so for us, as we run this race, like every Christian becomes a part of this race. We enter this race, whether we like it or not, when we come to know the Lord. But nobody wins a race just by staying at the starting block, right? So if you go back to that slide of Usain Bolt, like, can you imagine just like that picture frozen and he was just there at the starting block after all the training he's done, and he would never actually run in the race. He would just be staying at the starting block. It would be pretty absurd, right, for an Olympic athlete to put all this time, all this effort and training into a race and then just sit at the starting block. And that's not how we're meant to run the race either. It's not meant for us to just stay at the starting block. It's not meant for us to just sit on the sidelines and watch other people run, right? We need to get into the race. We need to get involved and really take action. And so hopefully, as I share some more, that'll kind of develop. But yeah, to win the race requires that you get in the race. And I feel like something really different from the Olympic races. In this race, we know it says all runners run, right? But we're not competing with each other. And that's something I really want to kind of emphasize here, is that like we're not meant to be striving against one another or competing one another or being jealous of one another in whatever it is that God has us doing. And I think it can be really easy for that to happen at times if we take our eyes off of Christ or whatever he has us doing and we're looking to the side, right? Like in a normal race, they're running so fast that they kind of take a look, or even in swimming, we're when they do that freestyle stroke, they look to see where the other swimmers are in the lanes. Unlike that, we're not competing against one another. And it's great because there's not only one prize given. Every believer, every Christian has access. They can win this prize. It's offered to everybody. And I think that's really good news, right? Because we always know that, maybe the person next to us is stronger or faster or smarter than us. And so if we're running against each other, then we're always going to be trying to measure up to the next person or comparing ourselves to the next, right? And so I think it's really good news that we're running towards opportunities that God gives us, not in competition or against what God may be doing in another person's life. So that's one thing. Another thing is that Paul says, run in such a way that you may obtain it. So when he says run, he means run. He's not saying, run. You can think about running. That's like what I do sometimes in the morning when I hate running. It's like, maybe I'll run, maybe I won't. No, he's saying run. It's not a suggestion, it's not an option, it's a command. And you say run in such a way that you may win. And so he's basically saying, like, don't sit down, don't give up, you gotta keep on running. And you're not only just like flailing your arms running, you're running towards something, you're running for the prize. So that's just to start us off. Like, I don't know where you may be at today. Like, maybe you feel like you're stuck at the starting block, or you're on the sidelines watching other people run their race well. But I want to encourage you guys that you can just pick up and get in the race today. So, diving, she had just had her mind set on winning the gold, and so she did whatever it took to just win the gold. Sad for USA, but I mean, she was like emotional, and she got the gold, right? She was focused, she was on purpose. So I don't know if you want to keep that visual in mind as you're training and you have purpose, but I think it's just like she had nothing else in her mind but winning and going after it. And so I think to win the race means that we need to be focused on the prize, right? So what is that prize for us as Christians? The prize doesn't mean salvation, right? When Paul's writing about this, he's already really secure in his salvation and his relationship with the Lord, but I believe that he's talking about the prize of heaven, of the eternal rewards, right? He talks about receiving an imperishable crown with eternal rewards. And so when we understand this properly, I think it means about the honor and glory of receiving these eternal rewards. It's the joy of hearing Jesus say, well done, good and faithful servant. Like, I want to hear that, I want to hear that so badly at the end of my life and when I see Jesus. So I think this is just the amazing grace of God, is that he puts us in this race and he gives us what we need to run, and at the end of it all, we not only get this free gift that we don't even earn for ourselves, but then he wants to bless us even more with these temporary and eternal rewards. Like, that's our God, isn't that amazing? So yeah, to win the race requires us to be focused on the prize. And to win the race requires knowing our purpose. So, sorry. Purpose. I know that word kind of goes floating around a lot in church, and I don't want to dissect it too much, but I do want to share. Before I became a Christian, after college, I moved to Hawaii for a year, and before I moved, my best friend from college, she gave me a book. She was a Christian, and she gave me The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. And I didn't read it for a while, but then I started opening it, and it just sucked me in, because for the first time in my life, I actually thought about why I was on earth. I think the first line says something like, "Why on earth are you here for?" And I just remember staring at it for a really long time, because I had been going through the motions of life. I knew what was expected of me, from my family, or even the expectation I put on myself, right? To, go to a good school, get a degree, work, start a family, But some of that wasn't happening, and so I was like, I'm just gonna go with the flow, and I'll go to Hawaii and chill out for a little bit and see what comes. But God met me there, in part there, and started taking me on this journey of, actually desiring and being hungry for purpose, for wanting an answer to that, and not settling until I got that. So I want to ask you guys today, what are you reaching for? What's this purpose? Because I think, for any of us as believers, we have the common purpose of, making disciples, of loving God, of serving others, loving people, right? But I believe that God puts specific things on us and calls us as well. And so we need to decide that, okay, you're not running somebody else's race, you're running your own race, right? And so you need to decide what a win is for you. And as I was sharing earlier this morning, I was thinking about, what is a win for you? What is a win for us as a church? Or, in your workplace? So, I think when we are able to lift each other up, when we're able to celebrate each other, that is part of the win, right? We're not saying oh, this person has some victory, but what about me? When that person gets their breakthrough, their victory, we celebrate that. We say, yes, that is a win for all of us, right? When there's a win at another church, the same thing. We're like, yes, they're saving souls, they're doing things on campus, that's a win for the kingdom. And so there's something really, I think, necessary and beautiful that we get to take part in as Christians and as a body of believers in this grand purpose too. But I want to encourage us to also have purpose for ourselves in our lives. So that's one of them. And then I want to share with you, could you go to the quote, not this next one, but yeah. So Jonathan Edwards, a Christian missionary, he said, "Lord, stamp eternity on my eyeballs." We had a hard time translating that into Chinese this morning, but thank God I don't have to do that today. I was just staring at Jackie so I demonstrated it, but if you, stamp eternity on your eyeballs is pretty graphic, I think, right? But I feel when we have an eternal perspective of things, really, just I know, heaven on earth, kingdom come, which is great, but have eternity in the forefront of our minds, and it's the very lens that we see everything, everybody through, that will give everyday purpose to our lives. I really believe that. It puts everything in perspective. When we can align to God's perspective, it changes everything. I promise you that. It's changed my life just doing that. So yeah, maybe we can pray that, stamp eternity on our eyeballs. Okay, maybe just me. All right, we're almost there, guys. The last point that I really want to emphasize with you all is what it means to persevere, to never quit. And Muhammad Ali there, champion boxer, he said that he hated the training. He wanted to give up so many times, but he just told himself that he would need to really work hard to go through it, to not quit, to persevere, and then he would live the rest of his life as a champion. That was a paraphrase on his quote, but you can see him there persevering and going through all the things that he went through in order to overcome. And so with that, the last verse that Paul shares in verse 27, he says, "But I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified." So some versions say persevere, some say persistence or endurance, but I want to go with persevere because persevere has to do with getting somewhere. I think persistence has to do with obtaining something, like the persistent widow in the Bible, right? She just kept nagging and nagging and going to the king until he just had to comply because she was so persistent. It has similar meanings, but I think the difference is kind of subtle. And so perseverance, I think, is no matter what, if you're in a difficult time, you need to, that situation may require every last bit of emotional, mental, physical strength for you to endure or overcome, and you need to just make a resolve saying I'm going to do whatever it takes to overcome and get victory. you know. And so if you are in a storm, you go through that storm, you run through it instead of avoiding it or running from it. And I think perseverance is also like what we have when sometimes we feel like quitting, but then that just like rises up in you and you say, no, like quitting is not an option right now. Like quitting is not an option, period. And I think it also becomes a part of who we are. It's not just something we do, but it becomes a part of who we are. In Romans 5:3, it talks about how suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. Like, I could probably do a whole message on that right now, but I'm not going to do it right now. Of how it's not just something we do, you know, like training and all that. It really becomes a part of you, like being persevering in your character. Like, I feel like our lives would look completely different if we didn't give giving up an option, you know, but we kept going and being confident that we would come out of it and be on the other side. And so perseverance, I think, really strengthens us and makes us strong. All right. And the next one, I talk about discipline here. So say to your neighbor, it's going to be okay. Oh, you cheer for Federer. I thought you were cheering for discipline. Okay, so discipline, this Greek word, hupopiazo, it means the area under the eye. It means to beat black and blue until you bruise, basically. And it also means to wear one out. So many of us may not like the word self-control or discipline, but it's going to be okay because both are necessary really when it comes to training and running this race. And so without discipline, we're sure to fail. This guy, Roger Federer, arguably one of the best tennis players in the world. He is, okay. So he, I think in some of the interviews I was reading, he struggled a lot with his mental game. And in a quote that I read of his, he said, before becoming a champion, I needed to first think like a champion. And if you see this guy play, it's like nothing can bother him. Like his opponent would be like ridiculous, like Andy Murray, and like going nuts, like cursing and everything, and he's just like, in his hair, like everything. He's just calm and cool and has so much finesse. And I think it really is a testament. Like, I didn't know that's what he had struggled with or that was what he said before, but he made a decision in his career to discipline his mind and to start believing that he was a champion. And I want to say that to all of us, you know, like, I think specifically for us, we need to discipline what we think between here. And that's something I've really struggled with in a lot of my life, is listening to and receiving the truth of God's word. Because it's so much easier to receive what other people say and even what the enemy might be throwing in your face, right? And so it takes that resolve to say, yeah, I'm not going to stand on what's false, what's untrue, but I'm going to stand on what the Word of